Mullah Nasruddin was sitting with his group of friends at the coffee shop one day when one of his friends asked him, Mullah, why did you never get married? And the mullah responded, well, you see, I was looking for the perfect woman. Well, did you find her? His friend said. And the mullah said, well, yes. And then he launched into a story. He said, well, first of all, I met this woman who was very gentle and very homely, but she wasn't very intelligent and she wasn't interested in spiritual things. And then I met another woman who was lovely, but she was far too worldly. She loved to look at herself in the mirror and buy pretty things. And then I met a woman who was perfect in every way. She was gentle and kind and a good cook and deeply intelligent and very spiritual. And his friend said, well, why didn't you marry her? And the mullah said, well, you see, she was looking for the perfect man. So let's dive a little deeper. There's a story of a young man, we'll call him Ramon. And Ramon was a very fine young being. He was the son of a widow. And from the age of 15, he was apprenticed to an apothecary in the village, and he soon learned the ways of all the medicaments and other potions. And he was so pleasant to everyone and kind that he very soon was made a partner in the shop. But he came of an age when his mother said to him, well, now it's time for you to be married and I will find a suitable bride for you. But all of the women that his mother brought along and introduced to him were not good enough. And his mother would ask him, well, what is it? And Ramon would say, well, I'm waiting for an angel. So after a while, after bringing many young maidens to meet her son, she gave up. She said, well, something will happen in the future. I just have to leave it to Kismet or fate. So sometime later, one day, there was a knock on the door. And when the widow opened the door, there standing on the doorstep was the most ravishing woman that she had ever seen. Her shining face, she was very, very beautiful. So the widow asked the young maiden, well, what is it you want? And the maiden said, I'm here to meet Ramon. So the woman immediately went inside and called her son and said, at the door is the most beautiful maiden I've ever seen. So out came Ramon, and of course, as soon as he saw her, he fell absolutely and totally in love. And they invited her in, and very soon she became part of the household. She was gentle and kind, as well as being very, very beautiful. But, of course, it was very appropriate that her living in the house, there came the moment when Ramon told of his love for her and asked for her hand in marriage. And she said, yes, I will marry you, but only on one condition. He said, I will do anything, I will promise anything to make you my bride. So she said, you must promise me that you will not question anything that I do or say. Oh, said Ramon, I'll gladly promise this. So the wedding took place, and they were very, very happy. His bride took care of him assiduously as she did his old mother, and after some time she gave birth to a little girl. Now the girl was about 3 months old when her mother took her up to the roof and threw her down so that her skull cracked and she died. Now Ramon was broken-hearted and absolutely bereft, and he was about to ask his beloved wife why she did this when he remembered his promise to her, so he kept his peace. After some time, his wife gave birth to a son who Ramon adored beyond measure, and his wife was a wonderful mother to this child. But after some time, one night when they were sitting by the fire, she took the child and threw him into the fireplace. Ramon tried to save him, but he died. And again Ramon was bereft. He wanted to ask of his wife why she did this act when she was such a good mother. But when he approached her, she knew what it was that he was about to ask, and she lifted her finger to remind him of his promise. And so he kept his peace. But then, some time later, she gave birth to another daughter. But after a year or so, she took this child and drowned it in the well. Now Ramon again was broken-hearted, but he dared not ask his beloved wife why. But then time had passed, and his old mother died. And there was, of course, a wake, and all the neighbors came to weep and wail, as was the custom. But as her body was being carried off by the pallbearers, his beloved wife went up to the roof and began to laugh riotously. Now Ramon was greatly shamed, certainly, even though there might have been ill feeling between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. There would always be the act of some kind of being sorry, the weeping and the wailing that was usual. But this was too much for Ramon. He could bear it no longer. And so after the wake, he came into his house and told his beloved wife to sit down, and he demanded to know why it was, not only that she had killed all of their children, but that she had acted so when his own beloved mother had died. Now his wife said to him, "You promised me that you would not question anything that I did or said. And you know that I also said that I would leave you if indeed you did. But let me tell you that our beloved daughter was destined to be said to be a witch, and at the age of 16, as was the custom with witches, she would have been thrown over a cliff. And our son was also destined to die terribly by being thrown into a furnace in his teen years. So to mitigate the need for suffering, this is why he was killed. And the daughter drowned also because she would be accused of being a prostitute, and the price for that was to be put and drowned in water. As for your mother, she was a mean-spirited woman. She gave nothing. Only once in her life, when a poor woman came to the door, did she give her an old torn sheet. This was her only act of kindness. So again, to mitigate, to expiate these deeds is why I have loved. But now, since you have not kept your word, I must leave. And before Ramon's very eyes, his beloved wife disappeared. There's another Sufi story about a seeker who came to a great Sufi sage and said, "Please, will you let me travel with you so that I may learn your ways?" And the Sufi sage said, "Yes, but you must promise me that you will not question anything that I do." And the young seeker promised that he would do so. So they set out again on one of those pilgrimages, as that was part of the Sufi's life. And they had not gone very far when they had to take a ferry boat across a river. But while they were travelling on the boat, to the great surprise of the seeker, the Sufi sage began to bore a hole in the bottom of the ferry boat. Now he was greatly shocked, and he asked the sage, "Why are you doing this? You are jeopardizing the livelihood and the lives of these people." And the sage said, "You promised that you would not question what was done." So the seeker had to keep his peace. They had gone on further in their travels when they were invited by the monarch of that place to hospitality, and indeed were invited out on a hunt that the king was undertaking. But accompanying them was the king's young son. And while they were riding, the sage, accompanied by the seeker, pulled out the horse that the young prince was riding, and the sage purposely made his horse stumble, the young boy falling off and breaking his leg in several places. Now the seeker had witnessed this and was greatly perturbed, and he even said to the sage, "Why are you treating the king like this when he has given us such hospitality?" The sage scowled at him and said, "Remember your promise?" So he had to keep his peace. They left that place and travelled on, and came to a place where, as soon as the townspeople saw the sage's patchwork robe, the sign of the dervish, they threw stones at them, chasing them out of town. But after they had reached the outskirts of the town, tired and thirsty, the sage said, "Come, we have a task to undertake." And he took the seeker to a place where a wall had crumbled, and he demanded that the seeker assist him to find rocks to build that wall and restore it. They toiled all day and night, and the seeker could not help himself again. He asked, "Why is it, when we have been treated so badly by these townspeople, that now we are restoring their town wall?" The sage looked at the seeker and said, "You promised that you would not question what I did, and now 3 times you have done so. So we must part our ways. But first I will tell you that ferry boat was going to be purloined by a despot and used in his wars to take over that which did not belong to him. So the boat was scuttled. The boy, whose leg was broken, was destined to become a cruel and despotic king, but no one could be put on that throne who had an affliction, an impediment, and that boy would have a limp which disenabled him from becoming king and taking over a cruel rule. In the case of the wall, under that wall was a treasure that would have been found by the people had we not restored it, because it was destined to be found by 2 young men who would bring change of consciousness to the people of that place in the time of destiny. But now it is time for us to part, and before the very seeker's eyes, the Sufi sage disappeared. Remembering that it's said that all characters and archetypes and symbols in all stories are aspects of our self, aspects of our psyche. What arises for you as the meaning of these stories?
to know the reason why for things is a very basic human sort of drive, and to be able to join with the spirit, you have to give it up.
There's a saying that nothing is as it seems, and it's quite appropriate to those stories because it's easy to jump to conclusions about what might be the case, but it's not. So, and they were warned that they should have this attitude that nothing is as it seems, so you shouldn't ask why, just accept, and then you'll understand later on. And so in the same way with us, when we see something happen, if we don't understand it, then we can just accept it and perhaps we'll understand
later on. Yes. If we dive a little deeper, I had the personal experience of being a little trained under Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in Hawaii with Death and Dying, and in participating in a rather extended workshop that was there, which was analysing the drawings of those, particularly those who were dying, because of course Elizabeth Kubler-Ross worked a great deal with children who had terminal illnesses. But it was demonstrated to us in those workshops that in every drawing that was made, it was clearly shown when that person was going to die. The number of birds that were in the sky, the scenery that was painted. All of these people knew the time and date of their deaths. What does it say about us? How do these stories fit into this recognition? What is it that needs to come together for us? Is it the subjective and objective? Is it the two sides of our brain, positive and negative, male, female? What do these stories tell us about this?
To me, it says that when I stop questioning everything, my mind is in a position where it let go.
Absolutely.
And I see things as they are, than what I think they might be.
That's right. The knowing is there. The knowing is us. It's there. What is it that's needed to allow it to be present in our life?
Emptiness. Emptiness.
Yes.
There's absence of self, because the self then has all the images that I guess block that or contradict that.
Yes. Which self?
Well, the imagined self.
Right.
You have self-images, you have desires, all those things,
Yes.
and they make you incapable of seeing past those desires and ideas of who you are
And what we do.
and what we do.
Yes.
It become construct